Right. So we are live. I'm going to go ahead and make sure you mute if you're watching anything from the live channel. So we got about 5 minutes here before we go fully live. So you guys ready? Are you guys ready for this?
What?
Sure.
Where am I? What is this?
I dust off the Oreo crumbs. I'm good.
So this is going to be an interesting topic tonight. Should be an interesting topic. I do know that we'll have some people watching football tonight. So I do apologize to anybody who is here watching the show and trying to watch football at the same time. We'll be honest with ourselves, though. Anybody who watches the NFL knows that typically Thursday night games suck anyway. So in the future, it won't matter, but it's night one, so you're going to hear my screen pulling up because I was watching the game. Alrighty. So, Lexer, this is your chance. If you do happen to have any clothes on, this is the time to take them out. Take them off. You're not on cam, so nobody has to worry.
I was going to say, you assume I wear them?
Well, you know what happens when you assume.
My cam is pointing at my ceiling, so no one has any idea what I'm wearing.
Yeah, but if the light hits just right in reflection,
Give you a hint. It rhymes with cheese strings.
What, cheese strings?
Maybe.
So anybody who is in the stream right now, you will see some instructions on the right-hand side. Those are there when we start this up for the first 5 minutes. The reason is if you want to come on the show, if you come into the Pantheon Plus Discord, you can join a green room, which is in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. And that tells us that you want to be pulled in to discuss the topic at hand. So you guys will be able to do that. You can jump in. It's open. You can get there on www.pantheon.plus. If it's easier for you, go to that. You can click Join Discord, or you can just follow the link that you see on the screen if you want to type it. But I don't know about you guys. Typing a Discord link, I'm not into. It's a lot of work.
Typing's for jerks.
Dude, back in the day when we were gaming and playing MMOs, man, that's where you learned to type.
And I was a jerk.
I would attribute all of my typing skills to EQ, by the way. The East Commons Tunnel. Awesome, we got Chris in chat. We got Yo Boy Navi. Your boy Navi. I like that. Cerulean, welcome. Chris, I already said Chris. I love that Savak's name is now Mr. Cake Donut. And I'm going to call you Mr. Cake Donut from now on. Orion Gaming, what is up, man? Aaron Wolf, welcome. Anakin64 from Down Under. Is that offensive? Anakin, tell me that. If I start doing like a really bad Australian accent, is that bad? Just tell me.
If it's offensive, just say Lexer did it.
The other thing, too, is, so quick story before we start. I used to work for Burger King. He said, can he do a bad American accent? But for sure, you can definitely do a bad American.
Game on.
You can, even if you want to pull a little inner Nathan Napalm out of it and go that route, a little Southern on there. But when I worked for Burger King when I was young, because, you can get the fast food jobs early. So I've been working my whole life. So I used to do the drive-thru, and I would do a really bad Australian accent in the actual drive-through line, like when I was taking the orders. And I like a lot of times it would go so far that I couldn't stomach like taking the money from people because I wouldn't be able to look them in the eye and do it. But I'd be like, "Hello, welcome to Burger King. What can we get you today?" I would go on the whole time, and it wasn't good. But a lot of the people were like, "Wow, where are you from?"
I live 4 blocks down the street.
And I'd be like, a lot of people would be like, are you from Australia? Like, yes, I am. But real bad. It was so bad. I was so many people probably like, what's wrong with this guy? All right, gentlemen, we have 1 minute left. This is your last chance. This is your last chance to run.
You better run.
I don't run. If I'm running, it's because I'm
Bad
angry and
boys
you
in
should
the
run
house.
too.
Nice. Nice. All right. As soon as that clock hits 9, should be any second now, we will jump right in. We will jump right into the viewer warning, the little start to the show, and then we will get going. Get your beers, guys.
Whiskey.
Orion says he's tempted to hop into the green room again, but my wife's talking to my sister in the background. Do it. Get in there.
Do it, yeah.
Tell your wife while you're on. Ask your wife. Ask your wife to ask a question.
Exactly.
It can be anything.
Just hand her the microphone and let her go.
Uh-oh, you just said let it go. All right, guys, we're 9 o'clock. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to get this started. Here comes the warning from Nathan Napalm. We're about to go full live.
Oh, we're live? We're streaming right now? Cool. Awesome, man. Let me just,
Hey everybody, Minus here from Pantheon Plus, and we are now on episode 3 of Pantheon PlusYou, a show dedicated to the community and some topics that are hot in the community, whether it's something that we're talking about now or we have in the past, just things that are pretty important that you see a lot of fire behind, we'll say. So tonight, first and foremost, I want to introduce my co-hosts, the first ever show with 2 co-hosts. I have Lexer and Yarn from VOT. Thank you guys for jumping in. Welcome.
You announced me first. I'm more important.
I was thinking of, I didn't want to make Yarn mad, but I was thinking to myself, I should say, and want to say that we got the host with the most and like build up like I was going to say Yarn and then say Lexer because I picked Lexer.
You do know Lex.
Oh, yeah.
You do know Lex, right? The last name's the one that the people remember the most.
It's just like in the races because I feel bad for him.
You know what the funny part was? He has that same exact line for if he was announced first. Right. It works both ways.
But remember, this isn't our show. We're not censored, so I can literally tell you where to go and how to get there.
Yep. Yes, you can. And that's an interesting part because I will tell you guys that when we were setting up, Yarn said to me, "Am I allowed to swear?" And I said, "Hell yeah." So yes, he can. So we may see a side of Yarn that we've never seen before.
Oh, you haven't seen.
Yeah.
The yelling at Lexer side. All right, so
it's his happy side.
So let's go ahead and jump into the topic at hand here. Let's go ahead and we're going to set the stage. And then if anybody here wants to jump in the green room to give your opinion on this topic, please do. If you have not joined the Pantheon Plus Discord, you can see very up top of the stream there is a way how to do it. The easiest way, just go to www.pantheon.plus and then there's a join Discord link. Click that and that'll take you right there. And then all you have to do is at the very bottom of the screen, there's a green room voice channel. You just jump in there and then we'll announce when we're going to pull you up and you'll have the air. And you're free to speak however you want. Just let's not go too crazy because this we don't want to get kicked off of YouTube.
And just a warning, whenever you hear the crazy beeps from Discord from being moved, stop talking because I've been caught mid-sentence a few times. It's like, uh-oh.
We try to give you advanced warning, but it doesn't always work. So let's the topic tonight.
Lex, why?
The topic tonight, which I think is one that there's a lot of opinions out there about. And one of the reasons, obviously, we wanted to do that, we'll try to do some topics that people are into and passionate about, is how much should or will Pantheon be like EverQuest? So if you haven't seen the show before, on the live screen here, you're going to see a meter on the left-hand side, and that meter is going to list from top to bottom exactly like EQ, 50% like EQ, nothing like EQ. So what we typically do is I'm going to give you guys my opinion and I'm going to set my meter, which is the blue meter. So that blue meter will get set by me. And then it's kind of up to all of you to convince me if I want to move my meter at all. And last week you guys actually did, which was pretty cool. And what we're going to do after that is Yarn and Lex are going to give their opinions on the topic and they're going to set the viewer bar to start the show. And then from then on, anybody who jumps into the green room will be able to then move that meter anytime they jump live. So fair enough. You guys good? You guys ready for this?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
The question is, are you?
Oh, I'm always, I have enough alcohol.
Buddy.
If I'm not, I have enough alcohol to pretend.
You didn't think this through.
All right. So where do I put this meter? Well, I'm going to put it at about, let's say 25% up. I think that it needs to just be very little like EQ. So let me go in and talk about why we are talking about EQ1. Someone in the chat asked, are we assuming this is EQ1, not EQ2? Yes, we are, but if you want to talk about EQ2, you're able to, so don't worry about that. So here's where I stand on this. I think that it needs to be about 25% like EQ. And when I say that, it's because there's things that I think are important, and that's the only pieces that I'd like to see like EQ. And to me, that is the danger of the world, a death penalty, so a reason why dying is bad, and the inability to skip the world. And then we can throw in there the fact that since it's a harder game, you have to group more, that community play. But that's the extent that I need from my EQ days. Those are the only key things. Everything else can be, and I hate to use this word, modernized, because people immediately think of games like World of Warcraft or the Korean MMOs, and that's not what I mean by the word modernized. What I mean by that is that it can be, imagine that there was a line. If you guys have ever seen the Back to the Future meme, imagine that there's a line, and at some point WoW came, and that's where we continued. Right before WoW, I'd like to break off of that and create a new modern, and that's kind of what I mean when I say modernized. So I'm going to set it at like under 50%, probably somewhere around 25% like EQ. That's my piece. I'll obviously be talking a lot more to the people that come on the show and talk about it. So you guys, what do you think? Do you guys want to take turns on this and then set and move the meter, or do you just want to go all at once?
What do you want, Yarn?
Whatever, buddy.
All right. I'll go first.
All right, Lex, so where do you think?
This is coming from someone who was a beta tester for EverQuest 1, played EverQuest 1. I played EverQuest 1 today.
Okay. What'd you play?
So I absolutely love it. I love EQ down to the core of my soul. The only thing that Pantheon should take from EQ1 is just the spirit. That's it. Don't take anything else. Because it's a game almost actually 20 years ago. It's a 20-year-old game. There's a lot of stuff at its core that does have value to the MMO genre. But times change. People change. Make a game the way they made make Pantheon the way that EverQuest was made.
So explain spirit a bit, because that's really open for interpretation. Like,
it is.
What are the key points of that spirit? I know that you can't sit here and draw it out completely. We could spend hours and hours, but just a couple things off the top of your head you can't live without from EQ.
The whole thing about EverQuest is you could potentially do anything you want to a point. Mind you, this isn't taking into account voxels and junk like that. If you wanted to solo, you could. If you wanted to duo, you could. If you wanted to go into a big group and take down a god, you could. Kind of idea. Where the world is there, it's up to you to find your path. And I'm not going to say concessions weren't made, because some were. But for the most part, development of games back then was slower. So you couldn't cater to everybody quickly like you can now.
Yeah.
So more often than not, it was, if you don't like it, that's just too bad, even if they change it 6 months. You know, by the time it comes out and whatever you didn't like has changed, you forgot about it. You need to care about the game, its world, its mechanics, how it's supposed to play.
And let the player figure it out from there.
Let the player...
Don't change the world for the player. Make the player change to the world.
Right.
That's a good point. That actually is a great explanation for saying spirit.
Yeah, because in EverQuest, you weren't a hero. You were only a hero if you wanted to act like a hero. That's it.
That's a good point. So where would you start the meter, and we'll let Yarn move it a little bit. Where do you want to start it? So you're more... Where do you want to put it?
2%.
So you're real low.
I'm real low.
I will put you just a tiny bit up from the bottom right there. All right, so Yarn, going off of what Lexer said there, how do you feel about it? Where do you think Pantheon should land in relation to EverQuest?
Pantheon, right? The problem we have is we're so focused on what was and what we grew up to love and learn, that we basically kind of lose that mindset to actually just think past all of this. Think past EverQuest. Think past WoW. Just look at it. Look at the genre from a general perspective. All these games out there, doesn't matter if it's World of Warcraft, if it's EverQuest, EverQuest 2, Vanguard, they all had similarities. They all had portions from the original grandfathered game, EverQuest. So, by right, Pantheon should be nothing like EQ at all. It deserves to be its own product, its own game in its sense, where we as players, appreciate that. Yes, like you guys have already both mentioned, the spirit aspect, certain features in the game that are, a quality of life and make sense, corpse runs, this, that, and the other. That all makes sense. But that's not the only game that had that. And the big problem we all have, especially the die-hard fans, and I'm not trying to bash on people, but people look at Brad McQuaid and automatically they put the label on him, EverQuest. Now, if he were to work for Blizzard all of a sudden, what's going to happen? People are going to expect World of Warcraft to be more like EverQuest? Hell no, they wouldn't.
I think it's a little different, though. I think if Brad was there when WoW was made, you would have that expectation. I mean, not if he was brought in.
Yes, but the thing is, though, even then, it's wrong of us to think that. It's wrong of people to expect Brad, no matter where he goes, to have that personal touch, and it's disrespectful towards the game company. Oh, don't forget, World of Warcraft itself, the Warcraft franchise, is older than the EverQuest franchise. Way older. Think of Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3. It didn't start in 2005, 2004 when World of Warcraft came out. It started 5-6 years before EverQuest even was a thing. So for me, the meter can
keep it low.
Back down to the
go all the way down to the bottom.
All the way down.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to have that moved a bit, but I thought that people were going to be more negative about the newsletter last week. So who knows? Maybe the community, when we bring you guys in and you can move it, we'll see what happens. So I'm a little at this point. Then I'm
clarification is needed too.
Sure.
Because when we're saying we wanted nothing like EverQuest, correct me if I'm wrong, Yarn, but we're not talking about like don't do tab targeting. Don't do
the basics.
The Trinity. Don't do tanks. Don't do healer. We're not talking about that. That's stuff that's a given.
That's pure given. It's in every other game or in every other second, third game or whatever.
Yeah. What we're kind of saying here is really just don't look at how EQ did it and then do it in Pantheon.
Yeah, let basically EverQuest have its glory, have its light, but also let Pantheon now kind of take that lantern and carry it forth.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pull in our first guest. We have a new person who joined our Discord tonight, Double A Power. Double A Power, we're about to pull you in. There's a tiny bit of delay, so I'm going to tell you that now. Just be ready to unmute your mic because I see that you are muted. So we're going to go ahead and pull Double A in now to the live room. So Double A, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, first of all, thanks for joining tonight. Appreciate you coming in and joining up in the Discord so you can get in on this topic. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've been watching your show for a while now, and I really enjoy it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, definitely. So the floor is yours, man. So where do you stand on this?
It's actually, my opinion has changed since I started listening to, because I was about 50%. But I agree, I want the mechanics and the timing and the structure of EQ. I want what I remember, like the love from that game, the community. So that's how I want it to be like EQ, not like the game, the lore. I think taking the torch, as he said, is a great way to say it. But I think I'm more on the mechanics side now. I want the timing, the deep lore, the new world, the having to sit there for a great buff that will last you 2 or 3 hours and being excited about that. I think those are more mechanic driven. I think after watching this, I'm kind of more on that side, but I'm going to still say about 25%.
Okay. So stick on because we'll talk a little bit because there's actually some stuff you brought up. I'm going to move it up a bit here. So what's interesting about what you said is you brought up the whole being being able to buff and carry that buff. So, instantly I think a lot of us think of Sal, Clarity.
Right. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
So, but it's funny because, Lexer and Yarn, you guys both said, well, we're not talking about we don't want anything from EQ. We just assume certain things are the norm. But what's kind of funny is that something that simple is lost in modern MMOs. The ability for a high level player not to power level you, but to give you some buffs to make you feel stronger for a bit. That's really been gone in the MMO scene for quite a while, and EverQuest did a really good job of that. So it's interesting because I think we don't want to assume at the same time that every game has most of what EverQuest has, because I don't think it does. I think there was a point, and then a lot of what's made, there's a lot of differences, and I think that's a really good one you brought up there, AA. Lex or Yarn, anything on that with the buffs?
Well, I looked at stuff like, MGB, Mass Proof Buff, or the fact that you could get the extended buffs, and people would literally do kind of buff party. That had very little to do with the game itself. It was the community kind of bonding together.
Well, a lot of games, though, remove your buff if you go outside of a group now.
A lot will, and honestly, I think it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I see why you do it, because back in the day, when you got Blessing of Agio, because I don't remember the full name of it, Agioism or whatever, and you were a level 1, you could literally wipe the floor with anything within 10 levels of you. And you
so there has to be a limit on it, right?
There does. But the thing is with EverQuest, that didn't so much matter because it took you exponentially more time to level back in the day than it does in your more modern one.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah,
Yarn, anything?
Yeah. So for me, it's completely the opposite. And I've already mentioned this on our shows as well, and Lex knows this as well. Now, my MMO scene started with EverQuest 2. And we didn't have that buffing up with the people. Now, while I do understand the gesture, and like Lex said, it is something that the community kind of brought in, I see it like, while it is a nice gesture, people should ask first before they go and buff somebody up. It is a nice thing to have, but I'm not a fan of it. We didn't have that in EverQuest 2. People, you could still buff people up and whatnot, but it was more of like, you had to ask for it, because let's say you're out in the world, you're doing something. You might be trying to figure out how to, get your DPS right on par. You're grinding away with your group. You're working on something, and somebody comes along and starts buffing the hell out of you. I used to hate that with a passion.
I disagree.
It's like, come on, dude. At least have the decency to see if we want this. It's a nice gesture, don't get me wrong, I do understand.
Oh, look at that, check that out.
I ain't a fan. I am not a fan of that.
Justin Rope, thanks for the sub. Did anybody see that? That's my new Borderlands.
Claptrap.
I ripped the thing of him saying, look at that, I'm dancing. So we had to get a little Claptrap in there. Borderlands 3 is coming. So Justin, thank you for the sub. Yarn, so that's an interesting... Jumping back to AA here, I don't want AA just sitting there, but AA, so, a couple different perspectives here. I am totally on your side. I think, so is it wrong for me to think to myself that, yes, this is a fantasy world. Yes, I don't want it to be real life, but I want there to be aspects of thinking about being in that world. So when I'm in that world and I'm with a group and we're young adventurers and we're fighting our way through, and this seasoned veteran comes through, and he puts his hand in the air and calls the light and buffs your group and makes you stronger, gives you a wave and says, have at it, adventurer. I remember this, or I was here before. I know that sounds really cheesy, but it's that feeling of that strong person coming through, raising their hand and blessing you with their power because they've put experience in. And you get however long to experience their support, while they can still go on and do what they want. It'd be a lot different if they were sitting there killing everything for you, but I really like that. And it's just, like, I remember an EQ as a monk. Ixar monk soloing. Now, I twinked myself with a fungi tunic, so I had a ton of regen. But I remember fighting really hard things, and I'd have someone come by and put a damage shield on me. And holy cow, was that sick, right? Thorns. So, AA, do you have any memories of that, like, of getting that buff in EQ and it being a lasting memory for you?
I have a great example of that. So I used to play with my dad when I was really young. And if you remember, EQ was pretty devastating, even like the Wasp, like level 1. And for a kid, you know, I'd just sit there and die again. So when my dad's, like you said, heroic character would pull up and give me these buffs, I mean, he'd have to sit there and do it 5 times because I would die and they'd go away. So, you know, from that perspective of someone who's not like a super gamer, it like makes their day. Like, oh my gosh, today I got 5 levels because someone came by and gave me this awesome buff, or someone made me faster so I got to run away from these mobs or go explore. And it also creates an economy because people would sit there and you would tip them for that buff before you'd go out for a couple of hours. And people loved that game because they were super high level in their robes, making money from casting and talking to people. And I think that creates what we're going back to is the community of EverQuest. I think that's a big part of it. Now, you could always right-click off those buffs, too, if you never wanted to use them.
Yeah.
So they weren't permanent.
If you're in my group and someone comes by and gives us a bunch of buffs and I see you click them off, Yarn, I'm going to just shake my finger at you.
The thing is for me, right, about it, it's kind of cheating, right? It's kind of like, you know, we want this challenge, but hey, we're okay with getting buffed up. Where's the challenge then, people?
I don't think it erases the difficulty. I think it just can help.
Here's the thing, though. I'm fine with drive-by buffing, especially when it's a single person, because you affect their gameplay. They can very easily reverse that effect on their gameplay if they so choose. But when you're in a group, you can't roll that back, because you know there's someone who's going to keep a buff on because somebody wants to feel super OP or feel like they're the king of the group, you know. That's a little different. I'm not going to say yay or nay to it because honestly, I've done it all. So yeah, I think that it's a matter of etiquette. If it's a solo person, not that big of a deal because you can remove it. If it's a group, you should probably ask because maybe some people would like the challenge.
You know, and that's the thing though, right? We've got 2 different views to this now, but there could be one view to it, right? And this is where our discussions always come into fruition. Options, choices. Give the players options within their menu to allow for something like that to be cast on them. Yeah, so anybody who wants to have this run by buff, he can have it. People that don't want to have it, they can just go into their menu and go click, don't accept, buffs. That would be the perfect workaround, because at the end of the day, it's not a groundbreaking mechanic. It's not going to break the game at all. It's not going to break your character. It's just like a little friendly bit of help. And, you know, I would be fine with that middle ground if something like that was to be implemented into a game like Pantheon, where the player can decide if he wants to have this benefit. That this friendly fella who's like, you know, max level, he looks really epic, comes along and buffs it onto you or onto your group.
Yeah, I don't think there's any problem with that. Now, here's my question. Let's reverse it though, because the big part that, and I know this is supposed to be, you know, how much do we want it like EQ? We've gone a little off topic while staying on topic, right? So a little off topic while on topic. And I think that this is one of those little things about EQ that's overlooked, because the number one thing a lot of people in chat have said and that we've said here is the word community. And that's the one thing I think we all want from EQ. That community is missing, and maybe not just EQ, but games of that day. And the thing about that is that, so you don't want that buff. You feel like it's cheating. And I don't think that most of these buffs are going to game break it. But you don't want those buffs because you want the challenge. That's absolutely fine. But at the same time, imagine you're now the higher level and you see a struggling group and you can go in. Would you go help them?
I would go in and help them.
So you would maybe toss a couple buffs, be like, hey, you guys look like you're struggling. Boom, here. Good luck, guys. And then head out, right? You would do that because as a community piece.
Take that opportunity to introduce himself, talk to them.
They'd all be dead by the time Yarn was done talking.
Probably.
yeah. You know, I'm kind of more like, you know, I would, you know, groups fighting. Now, if I could intervene into the combat itself, right, that's a different matter. Go in there, throw off a nuke, or draw aggro towards me, let them finish it off. I think that's the better way to go about it.
It sounds like to me you're trying to kill steal them. Did you hear that, Lex?
Yeah, I know.
All right, Double A, awesome points. Thank you for moving the meter up. Thank you for your contribution, man. I hope we'll talk to you again in the future. I'm going to drop you down into the green room again. So thanks for coming in, man.
No problem, dude.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll be back.
So good points there. I like that. He moved the meter up a little bit. I didn't go crazy with it, but I moved it up a little bit to keep your guys' opinion in there as well.
Come on, viewers, don't let me down.
Ours don't count.
No, they will. They hold some balance. So that was an interesting topic. I think that was really good. That is a part of EQ that I think a lot of people forget. To go into the chat here a little bit, because I don't want to skip through some of the stuff that people are talking about here. So there's a lot of talk here. Let's see. So Jared Smith said he loved that about EQ, being able to travel through and see a newbie and make their day with some godly buffs. Orion said, small gesture of good that people remember. It's not, if not a specific time, but that general feeling, which I think goes back to what I was kind of talking to you about. Would you go and buff them up? If you remembered a good moment, I think that we all would.
In the event of a new player, the buffs are never going to harm their experience because they're probably still trying to get a handle on the game, period. Because you don't know, this could be their first experience to an RPG, let alone an online one. You just don't know.
Yeah.
They might not even know how to chat.
Yeah, but I'll bring you guys now another argument, right? As to why I'm against this, right? It's simple.
Because
what do people do? Nah, they run by, they buff, and they're gone. How about standing still and chatting with that person first?
That's not saying everybody does that.
See if he needs a hand.
What if it's a healer? What if it's a healer that stands there and buffs you and then heals?
I'd rather communicate with them and see, see if I can show them the world a bit and, this, that, and the other.
Okay, actually, I got a scenario for you, Yarn.
Go on, Ed.
You've got to run through 4 zones to get to your group. Their group's already been waiting for you because you decided to go shopping or redo your supplies or whatever. So you're already feeling the pressure that you're holding their group up. You're running through. You got to run through a newbie zone. There's someone there. You see him standing next to a few of his corpses. Still fighting, obviously struggling. Do you buff them and talk to them and make your group wait on you even more? Or do you ignore him?
Damn right I do. Shoot a message in the group chat, say, hey guys, I'm going to take quickly, I'm going to be another 3 minutes longer, but I'm on my way. Boom.
And this is why I'm in a healer heavy guild.
Drop, kick, replace. All right, awesome.
My ass wait, screw you.
So let's a couple more things I'm going to read real quick from the chat here. So Micah just said, I used to sit, heal, haste, etc. new players so they could burn things faster for no reason, just because, and I made a lot of good friends that way. So he'd stay in one spot so they could come back to him, they could chat with him. A little bit like you were saying, Yarn, he's not just running by. Another person, Jared Smith, this is a great point, and I love this. The only downside is when they wear off, you don't feel quite as great as you were before.
Kind of like getting high, When it wears off, you don't feel as strong as you were. And then you have to go, then you start doing a little phantom itching on your forearm, walking up to you going, hey, can I get a buff?
I just think of Chappelle, scratching. And then the last thing here, I did want to a couple more. Orion said, the difficulty comes when those buffs drop in mid-fight. Very true. Yeah, when you start over-pulling, you're like, hey, we can pull.
Yeah, I'm kicking some ass. I'm saying oh shit, my ass is getting kicked.
Awesome. And then, let's see, Turin said, there does need to be a level requirement on buffs. I don't care if people buff me with a level 10 buff and I'm level 1, but AGO on level 1, no.
What if... Yeah. Instead of that, what if it was more of a recommended level and it scaled to the target?
I don't like that because I think that if someone who runs by you who's just slightly higher than you should be able to slightly buff you, and I think a god of the game should be able to run by you.
I'm thinking if it scales more like in steps rather than a gentle curve.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, Lex, right? We're banting back and forth here. We kind of,
it feels familiar somehow.
The middle ground is just give the players the option to choose if they want it or not, and then you're done.
They're going to take my goddamn buffs and they're going to fucking like it.
So you're telling me right now, Yarn, that you would click off Spirit of the Wolf?
I'd have Spirit of the Wolf.
If he doesn't, I'll dispel
I'll
it.
have Spirit of the
I'd have it anyway. You know?
Okay.
So
Fair point. All right, so never mind. You're playing a druid. All right. So last couple things here.
This is why I play Dire Lords or Shadow Knights or Tanks, because I don't have to worry about no freaking buffs. It's like, hey, you want some buffs? That'd be great. Okay, find someone that can buff you. See ya.
All right, I am going to pull Orin in. So Orin, you are muted. You're going to be pulled up here. So I'm going to give it a second so that you can hear this with the delay. We are pulling you up live. So Orin, you're here. Welcome into the channel.
Evening, fellas. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining again, man. And thanks for the contributions in chat so far. So good stuff. So we got way off topic, only talking about buffs. This is all about EQ. So have at it. You can definitely comment on those buffs. That's fine. But so where do you stand when you look at Pantheon and you think of EQ and where you want an MMO to be? How much like EQ does it need to be for you to be happy?
Man, so I've been thinking long and hard about that. And just to start off, even with the scale, I'd probably drop it just a hair.
Okay.
Which is what I feel like I did last week too. So I'm just
My man.
Whatever it is, just drop it.
right, exactly. Just drop it just a little bit more. But
a little bit more. Come on,
yeah.
don't be so stingy. Come on, minus.
Slip on my tandem, see if I drop it some more.
I'm just a little bit
All
more
right,
of a
there you
pessimist
go.
than
There
you. But you know, I obviously am drawn to this game initially because Brad was involved, because EQ was my first MMO.
My first love.
I know, yeah. I still play it a little bit, you know, and there's just so much about it that I prefer in how it functioned, in the community aspect, obviously, is one of the biggest parts. How the functions and the way the world was set up pushed the community aspect of that in a way that I felt like, you know, wasn't always super obvious. Like, it did it in a really, really good way. But so it's like I'm looking for that in Pantheon, right? I'm looking for those key characteristics, but I do not want it to be a carbon copy. I want it to be its own game. I want it to do its own thing. I don't want it to always be, you know, well, it's like this with EverQuest, you know, or it should be like EverQuest like this. I want it to be its own thing. And so far I've been really impressed because I feel like they've captured a lot of the feel while still bringing their take to the table. I commented on Twitter after one of the streams that I was super impressed with the Enchanter. Because what do you do new with an Enchanter? You know, I mean, they're a very specific kind of job class, and what I love to see in that stream was you're a mana battery or you know, your crowd control, but like the different take, the big problem with the Enchanter, or the not problem, but kind of the con of the Enchanter was you're not really doing a lot of damage, right? You're not really, you're part of the fight, but you're kind of paying attention to the peripherals.
Yeah.
And what they've done with their Enchanter, I feel like, as far as we've seen, is bring them more into the fight while still fulfilling that role, while still having that feel. And I feel like that's a really good example of like the entire game.
Yeah, there's a lot of familiarity.
Right.
That stops at just the familiarity. I'm not even going to try to say it again. But you know what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, it's interesting because I remember in the original, in Yarn, you and Lex would be better to talk than me here. But I remember in some of the original videos, you even heard like the skeletal laughs. Some of the old sound effects were in it. I don't know. Are they still in it? Some of them? In some of the recent streams, I think.
Maybe?
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah, I can't really.
I can't remember if we've seen any recently, but I know that in some of the old streams you'd hear certain sounds and effects, and I think it made people really be like, wow, this is going to be exactly like EverQuest.
You know, speaking about like the old, like the buff sounds and the skeletal laugh, when I first saw that first video, my nostalgia got so hard.
Yeah. Yep.
So
yeah.
Good.
Oh, I was just going to say, so yeah, for me, that's kind of the thing. Like I want it to draw from that in the feeling, in the core concepts, in what they're trying to do, and even what you were saying earlier about this idea of going back kind of before the WoW hype, and doing a new, what could have been a more modern MMO with a different take.
Isn't it funny how mad, or how, when I say mad, how reactive people get when you say the words modern MMO? Because it's been like, it's for some reason, there's no other way to describe what we're trying to say, which is an evolved version of EQ. I think we all want an evolved EQ.
Well, maybe we should be saying modernized.
It's impossible because everyone will instantly think you're talking about quality of life.
Well, because
loot boxes.
All modern MMOs, granted, WoW is not modern anymore. It's an old game.
Well, put it down
modern
to
ones are garbage.
Yeah, but put it down to the updated version of the mechanics. Bring it into the 2019 era. I mean, look how the game companies have, or gaming itself has evolved over the last 20 years, right? Why do we have to be stuck in the past? All these core
because it was better. Because it was such a better time, Yarn.
Yeah, but the thing is, Minus, right? Let's be fair here.
Yeah.
We want everything that's new. Everything.
Unless it's made by Apple.
The newest PC models are out there. Everything's new. But when it comes to that one game, we're stuck in the past. And we should move past that. And the thing is, take like the corpse ones and add that twist to it, update them a bit.
Yeah.
Add a little flair to it. Something that makes you go, huh.
All right, so
we could go that way.
And Oren, I'm going to get back to you, so stay here. I want to read something. This is it's kind of funny because I think a lot of people look for information on Pantheon and they don't know where to get it sometimes. Number one, because you can't really search newsletters, so unless you've read an old newsletter, you're not going to remember where it's at. So the organization of the information isn't really there, but they do have a really good FAQ section. It hasn't been updated in a while, but there is a lot of information to gather there. So I want to read something as quickly as possible here because I think this paints a really good picture in what we're all kind of trying to say, but coming at it from different angles and almost sounding like we're not agreeing where we kind of are. So in the FAQ, one of the first things it says here is, it sounds like Pantheon is bringing back a lot of older MMO game mechanics. Is Pantheon a clone of older games or a modern MMO? And I always really liked this answer. This is part of the FAQ that I really enjoy. So I'm going to read it real quick. Pantheon is most definitely a modern MMO. I mean, it's the first line. Pantheon is most definitely a modern MMO with modern graphics and a new exciting features and mechanics. So right out of the box, I think that all of us take a little bit of a sigh of relief when that's read because we do want that, right? So they continue on and they say, there are already emulators out there for clones of earlier MMOs, and Visionary Realms has no desire to make another emulator. That said, we also feel like many of the features and mechanics of previous MMOs that have been abandoned in more recent games, and this has resulted in a less challenging, compelling, deep, and social experience. Pantheon, therefore, will indeed bring back some of these conventional mechanics and ideas, but with a fresh perspective, some tweaks and revisions, and we also understand that while gamers' tastes don't fundamentally change over time, their situations, lives, and responsibilities do. So likewise, some of the game mechanics often associated with early MMOs involved inordinate amounts of downtime, overly severe penalties, too much competition over content and resources, and even downright boring or overly repetitive play. Our intention, therefore, is not to bring back everything from the old days, but rather pick and choose those which make sense and are needed to make a fun, social, cooperative, and challenging game. So that's right from Pantheon. Is there anything in there, and Oren, I'll start with you, that you disagree with, or does that make you feel good?
No, I mean, that's what I'm looking for, right? Like, we're taking the things that drew people to the MMO genre in the first place that we feel is kind of, some of that's been pushed out for convenience, or, the bigger subscriber base, or, the more money being spent in cash shops and stuff like that. We've kind of pushed that out, and we're going, hey, let's go back to what, everybody fell in love with MMOs.
Kind of where this genre should have evolved to.
Yeah, exactly.
Before, I mean, and we can't a lot of people hate WoW and hate on WoW and get mad at WoW. We can't blame WoW. WoW made a different game and it worked. And the problem is the industry's to blame at that point. And Lexer, I know you can jump all over this. If everyone wasn't trying to clone WoW for money, we wouldn't have lost all these core competencies in EverQuest. If someone said, let's make a game that will honor the original EverQuest back then, they would have had their crowd. But the fact of the matter is World of Warcraft just did something different and it worked. And instead of people continuing to do something different and having it work, they tried to challenge World of Warcraft by cloning it in a shitty way, so no game ever touched it and kept it on top. They forcefully kept WoW on top by putting out horrible clones of it. So, I mean, do you guys agree with that?
If it wasn't for all those WoW clones trying to get just a little wedge of that pie, the MMO industry would not be in the horrible rut it is in today.
Preach, brother.
Yep, because, I mean, look at them. Most of these MMO or these WoW clones, they're free to play. I mean, it's insane. It is insane how many MMOs there are actually on this market that are free to play. And I always wonder, it boggles my mind to even think, to even fathom how they make a living. It's mind-blowing that they make a killing and still survive years down the road.
Yeah. All right, Oren, I'm going to drop you out, man. Awesome contributions. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Moving that meter down. Always welcome back, my man. Good stuff. Thank you.
Yep.
We're going to give him a little overlay. We're going to give him the good point.
I like the way the viewers are going.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I have not predicted the viewers very well. I am obviously not.
I can guarantee you, come Monday, I will have hate mail waiting for me. And it will be from people that I don't even know.
Nice.
We'll have to do a follow-up then to this.
Nice.
Minus on our show.
There you go. Okay, guys, we're going to bring in Zelius. He just joined up to the Pantheon Plus Discord a couple minutes ago. He's been sitting in the green room, so we're going to pull him in, and he'll have the opportunity to move that meter. And I keep saying he, so I apologize if this is ever a female. I'll just say they. My apologies. So Zelius, we're bringing you in now. So Zelius, you're muted. You can go ahead and unmute your mic when you are ready. No pressure. He's afraid of Lexer. Or she. Maybe it's because I've been saying he. There you go. What's up, Zelius? How are you?
Hey.
So, welcome in, man. What do you think? We are not hearing you. I might have to drop you back down, man. I apologize.
I hear breathing, but I hear no talking.
Yeah. We're going to move you down, but if you get it fixed...
Kind of like when I answer the phone late at night.
We're going to move you down, Zelius, but if you get it fixed and figure out what's going on, come on back into the green room and we will pull you back up. Probably just have to mute the feed and just listen to us in Discord. So I'm going to drop you out. All right, so we're going to actually bring in Shepto. So Shep, get ready. Here you come. What's up, Shep? How are you? Uh-oh. We have two.
Hey.
There he is. He's here.
What's up, guys?
Hallelujah.
What's up, Shep? So you have the floor. You have the floor first.
Yeah.
So tell us what you think on what we've been talking about. But the main topic, obviously, is how much would or should Paladin be like or Pantheon be like?
Well, I'm probably gonna disappoint Lex, but I'm kind of up there with you, minus a little, even maybe a little higher. I want mechanics from it. I want the pacing from it. Is what I want. A lot of MMOs are so fast today that it's just not as, for me personally, is not as fun. There's no strategy other than how quickly you can push your buttons in the correct order that you do, right? And for some people that's fun to them, they enjoy that, but I just don't feel there's any strategy left. But making a comment about Yarn about being in the past is like, apparently people love the past because classic WoW is blown up and people love it. So
you mean that new MMO classic queue manager game?
Yes, exactly. In that, but I mean, I know buffs and stuff have been a big topic, and that I mean world building. Some of the most unique zones from EQ, like just running through them. I want that feeling again. Not that saying that these other games don't have unique zones, but they all felt empty to an extent, right? That's where community comes. But I would take. I mean, we would all play EQ probably right now and take that. Honestly, a lot of us in the community would be like, if you could just
Like if
somewhat
it was
copy
new,
that.
if it was new and it was the same game,
I just want a new world, a new story, something to explore, right? And that the mechanics. I mean, yes, it's going to be faster than EQ. I can guarantee that.
Well, it's
But the
because if you
strategy
play a
of-
melee, you'll have more than one button, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly, right. You're not just gonna bash and a kick and then stand there and taunt in that as a warrior. But the limited spell sets and stuff. I mean,
Oh, that's a
knowing
good
that
one.
you have to go into a fight. And my question, I can't remember, and maybe you guys remember, is if you can switch those in combat, because in EQ you could, if you could sit down long enough to switch spells out. But it makes you change on the fly and change your perspective if you get too many ads or something of that nature. I think something about that game, and it could just be nostalgia, right? That we all played it. That's something that we all enjoyed. But I mean, it doesn't mean that you just make a carbon copy. You got to pull ideas from some games that enhance the experience. But I think it's pacing for a lot of people. Like, I don't want to get to 50 or whatever in a month. I would love it to take months of that, right? Because people learn the game when you take longer to level, and then you have less of this they learn the game by playing. I mean, how many times did you read your spell book or whatever when you were leveling up and you memorized
Well, you
every spell?
sort of had to because you couldn't get away from it when you were.
Right. Right.
Now that I don't want.
Question.
That I don't.
Yeah,
want.
sure, go for it. So
Would you agree or disagree to say that the pace of combat or leveling is technically part of the spirit of EverQuest?
Yes, I would.
So,
I mean,
I am fighting the raise on that side because
Well, the spirit of EverQuest is still a percent like EQ.
it's
So as you hype that up, you might be raising it more.
maybe.
yeah. I mean,
But
it's just
when you tell me how much do you want this like EverQuest, I'm thinking of everything, absolutely everything, every spell, every zone, every creature,
Well,
everything.
So what we didn't jump into, sorry to interrupt, what we didn't jump into at all was that, when I think it was Oren came in and he talked about the Enchanter. Well, there's no other game with an Enchanter. I mean, just having that Enchanter class built the way it is with the spells that it has, that is damn near 90% all EQ, that class.
Yep.
Just off the top of my head, do you want me to throw something that would make the class completely different? But
Sure.
the same?
Don't let it charm. I'm just kidding.
No, let it charm. Give them a pet that has to do the CCing.
I'm against pets in general, so no pets for me.
Well, no, a pet that it casts mez, a short duration mez. You have to lock it on, basically say, do your whole attack or whatever. But it gives them a pet. They're still crowd controlling. They can actually contribute in combat themselves rather than through proxy.
I like the strategy of I like the strategy of awareness needed to be a measure, and I'm not into that.
Still need awareness.
I'm not into
really
it.
drop off something and that pet's running around the zone. I'm just kidding.
With enough balance, you could swap the pet between them to keep multiple things mez.
So I hate druids in this game. Sorry, Jan. I hate druids because they heal with a pet. I dislike summoners in this game because they rely so much on the pet. And that's just me. Let me be clear. I'm not speaking for anybody outside of myself. I do not like a pet that does damage for me or does things for me.
I'm not saying to do this stuff either. I'm just saying you can take something that you don't think that you can really do anything with, and you can just think for a minute and find something to do. Yeah, using a pet to mez might not be the best solution, but at least you're
saying just to change it up.
Path. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing to change it up either. So let me be very clear. But what I'm saying is that, the Enchanter in this game, foreseeably, I'd be comfortable saying doesn't exist without it modeling after EQ almost exactly.
I mean, you don't even have to change the spell in the sense of a pet. You can have it be like, why doesn't it be like you create an illusion of someone that holds aggro on it, right? Instead
so
of
it's
just
more
messing
themed.
it.
Yeah.
right? Where it's not so much a pet as it is just an illusion, and
Right,
they
it's
can
just an
basically
animation
a
to it.
temporary, yeah, where it feels different than just, hey, there's
Yeah.
little stars above their
And-
head or
And
whatever.
to be honest, like a fireball and an ice bolt, they feel different because of the sound and the effects and everything. But they're
Well, what-
literally the same freaking thing. You
There's
cast you channel, you throw a ball, and it does damage.
You can say the
there's a
same
lot
thing
of
about the
things
races.
about EQ and the spell system too. Is like, if you read, like, all the spells have unique names. If you play some other games, it's just like, hey, you get
Fireball 1.
and then Fireball 2 and Fireball 3 and that.
Big
But the one thing-
fireball.
and you guys may remember, is like, as you leveled, right, your spell graphics got more detailed, right? And I'll say detail EQ back in the day, but it added more particle effects and stuff.
Detail.
And I thought that was cool. That gave you, once you learn that, like, that was one of the cool things about leveling, right? Is like, oh, at this level I get, my name or my last name, and there were little points in there, because I know they're debating on whether or not to give you a last name at the beginning or later in the game, but it's like, it's something to build towards, as you level. It makes that experience that much more fun.
So can I ask you guys something now, right?
No.
I've been sitting back here listening to this chat and everything. I got to ask myself, right? If everybody misses EQ and loves the way EQ is, why aren't they playing EQ?
Because been there, done that.
Secondly,
Because they destroyed it.
Right. No.
Well, because-
Secondly,
Yeah, they did.
right? If you're not looking for something different, why are people drawn towards Pantheon?
Well, why were you drawn towards Pantheon? Why were you an early adopter?
Pantheon, right? I came from Landmark, EverQuest Next Landmark, right? That's where I originated. And when that shut down, I looked up Pantheon, and Pantheon had exactly the same ideas as EQ Next. That's what drew me towards it.
Which came from EQ.
And if you look at it, right, they're trying to modernize the game. I don't care about how it was back in 1999, 2004, 2007. I don't care about that. They're adding in mechanics to their game that have never been before. Weather system, perception system, acclamation and climate. They're bringing back the challenge. Yes, obviously that's something that most of these games lack. But they were adding so many new features, and alone the twists on the races, the twists on the characters, the classes themselves. A Dire Lord is not exactly like a Shadow Knight or Dread Knight or whatever. It's not, a cleric's not exactly like the other cleric. There's similarities, the twists, the little things. Those are the things that drew me towards it.
What I'd argue with you about Yarn, though, is you're thinking. So I think and again, I'm only speaking myself, but I think when people say that it needs to be like EQ, there's the people who take it as it needs to be EQ like a carbon copy, and there's people that take it needs to be EQ sort of like what Lexer's saying, which is the spirit, which EQ most defines the spirit. So let's go back before EQ. EQ is influenced by D&D, and the entirety of playing EQ was like taking a former playing a D&D game with your friends and doing it in a 3D world, and it kept true to that. WoW isn't that at all anymore. No MMO is that at all anymore. So when
EQ isn't that anymore.
Exactly, EQ is not. So I get your argument of if you just want to play EQ again, why don't you play it? Well, that's not what we're saying. Keep in mind too, I'm like my view, which is the highest so far, is that I only want 25% of what EQ was, which means that I want 75% of new games. So keep that in mind. Even though I'm on the other spectrum of you guys being completely done versus having some of it, I think it's not that we want to just play EQ again. We want to play a game that lives on for us, which again, I'm going to go back to your spirit phrase, that gives us that spirit that we're still talking about a game from 1999 and wanting more.
Yeah, because you can play EQ1 right now, right? I mean, on P99 or whatever, it's still fun. The problem is that for a lot of us, we've already done it, and that's the thing. Like, yeah, I can do it all again. It's just going through the motion. It's like and live EQ is not EQ anymore. It's it's just like WoW. If you go play BFA and WoW and then go back to Classic, you see all the changes that have been created to make the game more friendly, right? I guess put that in quotes, in that to make it easier for people to group up. But you lose the essence of an MMO when you add duty finders, whatever, and LFG and LFR and all that, right? Why talk to anybody? Why even make any friends in the game when you can just have loot given to you and just sit there? And it's fun. I don't play WoW Classic, but I watch people sometimes, and like, fascinating, just grouping up to kill like 10 boars, right? Because they just don't want to, one, they don't want to sit there forever and try to kill boars by themselves, but two, they'll die, right? And they don't want to die. So it almost forces people to group. And I know that sounds terrible. People are like, I don't want to be forced to group, but it's like, that's kind of how you make friends, and you kind of learn to play with people. And
I'll tell you a true story. Before I played EverQuest, I had a horrible stutter. I was a shut-in. I wanted nothing to do. I was afraid to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
I was also a drug addict and an alcoholic. If it wasn't for EQ, I wouldn't be able to talk to anybody, because I would be so imploding upon myself that I probably wouldn't be sitting here today.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you're right.
Even though you don't want to be forced, sometimes, even if you don't want to do it, it's the best thing for you.
Yep. I mean, you're right.
So to get us back on track a little bit, I think we're pretty much there. And Yarn, and kind of what I was saying to you, and Shept, I'm going to drop you out, man. Awesome contributions. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming
anytime,
in.
Guys.
Awesome. So in Yarn, to get back to kind of what we were talking about, I think that the better way to word this and kind of debate this, because I think that we're a lot closer, but we're like taking different sides because of this meter almost. The difference is like this, if you want Pantheon to steal ideas from a game, I think most of us would say we want them to take it from EQ instead of WoW currently, or any current MMO that's coming out for the most part. So I think that that's why EQ is so much compared. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people in the community that want it to be EverQuest. Like, that's it. Like a graphicked up EverQuest. I don't want that. So I think we're mostly on the same page there. So, but Yarn, I know there was a lot tossed out. So anything else you want to throw out? The floor is yours right now.
Oh, crap.
No, it's just...
He just fell out of his chair.
When you're naked on a chair.
I leaned back, I had to get that little glitch going.
He has a notepad.
So, that's the other thing as well. A lot of people, right, EQ's that one thing, it's the holy grail. And every MMO that's evolved over time has had its good, its bad, and most of them, they evolve their game generally into a piece of crap, for lack of words. It doesn't matter if it's EverQuest or EverQuest 2 or what happened with WoW or Arcade, you name it. They've all gone down that path and they've all messed it up.
Mm.
But they all have merit and they all have good features in there. There's a lot of quality of life features that still keep the core challenge there, the group socialization there, that kind of modernize how certain mechanics from these older games are approached. And even the bad mechanics, there's a lot of bad mechanics out there that are still good mechanics if you take the time to analyze them, look at them, break them apart and see how you could do it differently. And that's where I think, us players lack the intuitive to just basically shut off your mind for a minute, shut off the nostalgia for a minute, and just have an open mind when you're looking at these things, and try and view it from that point.
So let me ask you a couple questions, just yes or no questions, and this isn't a trick or anything, it's just stuff coming to my head. So do you want a penalty for death? Do you want it to be a bad thing to die?
Definitely.
So that's a whole different topic.
It was a bad thing to die, period.
Well, maybe not in this current world.
At least I get a penalty.
There's some games that give you. Doesn't Project Gorgon give you experience for dying?
Without risk, nothing is worth the reward.
Okay, so that's where I'm going with it, though. So we want some kind of meaningful death. We all want the world to be dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Do we all kind of want the grouping aspect to be more important than solo?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We want classes that are unique and fill a specific role, right?
Yeah.
I want classes that a veteran can still be surprised by.
Yeah.
but something to where someone who is more beginner or intermediate to an RPG or an online RPG can quickly become familiar with.
But the reason I asked all those questions is because a lot of that, in my opinion, comes from the spirit of what EverQuest was. So I'm actually, as funny as this is going to be to say, the more that, and this is interesting. So Lexer and Yarn, you guys were both very low, and it's come up a little bit, but it's stayed pretty low. And Lexer, your point to try to keep the meter low is actually increased mine. So I'm actually going to increase it to about 30%. Because that spirit,
it'll always go down in my eyes.
Because that spirit is just absolutely.
But how much of the game is spirit?
All of it. It's why we're still talking about it. It's why it still matters.
The graphics, the zones, the spells, the quests, the bosses.
You know why? Because when I think about EverQuest, in my head, the graphics are way better than they actually are when I remember it. Like, when I go back and play an old game, I'm like, ugh. In my head, playing the game, it looked beautiful.
Right? They're not great, but they're not the worst I've seen.
And I've been playing a lot of different MMOs. We did our community game night, stuff like that, and we had some fun doing that. And here's the thing. The only one I thoroughly enjoyed and wish we'd do more was EverQuest. It was a freaking blast. So we're in overtime right now for a couple minutes. We have a couple more people I'm going to pull in from the green room. It looks like Zelius got his mic situation fixed. So Zelius, we are going to pull you in to give your opinion here. And don't worry, I will give you Lexer and Yarn time to wrap up at the end here as well, because I know we're moving a little quick here. So Zelius, we're moving you in. All right, Zelius, do we got the mic working?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Sorry about that, my man. Thank you for jumping back in and getting it fixed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I am a man.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we heard your voice for a split second, so I did assume that you were. So it's good to hear that I didn't mess that up. So yeah, the floor is yours. Where do you stand on this topic?
I'm thinking everybody's making good points, but as far as EQ goes, and I played it back in the day as well, and a lot that I see from Pantheon is looking really close to how EQ was, and that's what I'm looking for. Maybe some of the aspects need to be tweaked, but mostly I'm looking for something that's really close to EQ.
Okay. What about EQ do you miss the most from what's out there now?
Definitely the social aspect. I mean, my friends list was full. I was in Fires of Heaven, so.
Oh wow! Okay, you were in Fires of Heaven with Chris Kane was in Fires of Heaven too.
Yeah, yeah. So my friends list was full. Like somebody had said, you literally log on before your game was loaded.
Yeah, it was the community. I mean, it's funny to say, but like in EverQuest, it was representative of the time where you had a friend, and if you got in a fight, you worked it out because you didn't want to lose a friend, and you did the same thing in the game, and then the game was made to be rewarding of that. And then WoW is made to be the ghosting aspect. Like, you get in a fight with your guild, you just leave the guild, block everybody, and you go find a new guild, and you move on because there's no community. It doesn't matter. And I think that the last time that was really done well was the games like EverQuest, Final Fantasy 11, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
So another thing that's popped to mind, right? Well, we're looking at it from EverQuest. Who did EverQuest have as a competitor? Zero.
Ultima Online?
Right? Oh, Ultima Online. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's that one game. Ultima Online or EQ. If you look
RuneScape?
at it now, 2004, 2005, right? There's literally hundreds of competitors out there, big and small. It's different times as well. And that's another thing that's got to be taken into account when it comes to the mechanic structure. Also, like Brad even mentioned in his FAQ, we as players might not have changed much from our direction of play styles and everything, but our lifestyles have. And that goes for 2004, 2005, when the mainstream became, when the MMOs became the mainstream. It's the same thing there. 2004, 2005, a lot of stuff changed for us in life. We're mostly in our mid-20s then, mid-30s or whatever, or even older. just turning into a teen, your priorities shifted. So that's another thing also to take into account, why some of these games, or these games of the modern times, are the way they are as well.
So do you play, I don't know this about you, and so I am actually asking, I'm not trying to set you up, but do you play console games at all?
I do play console games
okay.
every now and then.
I used to be a huge console gamer. I'm not so much anymore, but all the console games that are really big right now are old retro style, like hard, like Dark Souls was retro to the old days, like the old Kingsfield games and stuff like that. Really hard, difficult. Remakes are huge. Sequels to games like Resident Evil, different stuff like that are big. I almost think that, yes, you're 100% right that the times have changed, but I think that there is enough of the gaming world that wants to go back. And if enough of the gaming world wants to go back, then when a game like this comes out with that retro feel, and again, let's keep in mind, again, I do want Pantheon to be its own game. But I think that it's only old if the crowd thinks it's old. And if the crowd that wants to play thinks it's where they want to be, then it's its own version of modern, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, it makes sense. It's just that, people should still leave a little room.
Oh yeah.
Try and let Pantheon breathe on its own.
Oh, without a doubt. In the lore, the classes, the world, the way the world's made, the weather. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm 100% on board with you there. I agree with that. That's some of the stuff I love most about Pantheon, is the differences. So, all right, so Zelius, you want to move that up a bit, huh? Tiny bit.
I'm sorry, was that?
Since you want to move the meter up a little bit, then so we'll move it up a tiny bit.
Yes, sir.
I didn't move it much, Lexer.
Breaking my heart, man.
Yeah, buddy, you let us down.
Good job, Zealous. Good job. Zealous, I'm going to drop you down. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. All right, so we are going to be wrapping it up. So there's the funny part about this topic is there are so many things within it to talk about. And it's in generically saying how much should or will it be like Pantheon is difficult in a mass group with a bunch of different opinions to really nail down this is exactly what that means. And I don't think you ever will either, right?
Well, it's difficult because we put different values upon different aspects. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, the spirit of EverQuest is a small part of the game, but it's the most valuable part to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be the same with WoW, as an example, right? Now, let's say some major WoW, which has happened, creates his own studio, he decides to create an MMO. The same thing would happen there. The people that are looking for that nostalgia feeling to classic WoW would also look to him and say, hey, they want his game to be just like WoW.
You know why I struggle to relate WoW to EverQuest? EverQuest was completely written for EverQuest. When WoW was made, they had years and years and years of story and lore to just make a game around. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty...
They also had someone else that was moderately successful to base...
Didn't they take a ton of EverQuest guys?
They did.
Yeah. So it's just such a different setting to me that it's... And I don't know if anybody knows me or watches any of my content, but I played WoW for 14 years. I love WoW. I'm done with WoW. Let me be very clear. I'm done. I've put my time in. I'm not going back. That's not because I don't like it. I just want something different.
I'm in the same boat with you.
Right? So I have no issue with WoW. The difference is that I've moved on to Pantheon, and I want Pantheon to bring back something that I have stories from WoW. I have raid stories from WoW. Essentially, almost all my stories are about overcoming raid bosses with my guild. That's 90% of my stories that are positive, and all my negative ones are the people I had to interact with at bad times. But the thing with EQ is like I can sit here like drowning in the ocean of tears because I went AFK on the boat and fell off. Camping in Lower Guck, the Field of Bone, which is a low level leveling area, which was incredible, right? Being a wizard and being able to teleport people around and make a living with it and have the biggest, most badass looking spell in Ice Comet for a little bit. It's these things that I just got to laugh because Mr. Cake Donut, as I refer to him now, Mr. Cake Donut continuously tells me that Classic WoW is calling, and he just put it in Classic Calls. But the difference is that I enjoyed WoW for what it was, but it never. I left EQ to play it because I really enjoyed it. My friends enjoyed it, and a lot more people I knew played it, and that's what got me to go. Not a lot of my friends played EQ, a couple. So that's what made me change over, and I'm like, well, I've already played an MMO. I know I can help people. But it never replaced EQ, if that makes any sense.
But minus, that goes for everybody, though. That goes for every MMO. You ask me, for instance, that first MMO, that first blood you drew for an MMO will be forever.
Actually, no, because EverQuest is my second MMO.
Are you counting Muds?
No, I played UO.
Okay, you played UO. Okay. But, I mean...
Yeah.
So in Yarn, you were huge into EQ too, weren't you?
Exactly, and EQ2 will always have a big place in my heart. Definitely, Yeah. And if EQ2 did a EQ2 classic, I'd be on that with a heartbeat.
They did.
Of course I would. But, I would never look at EQ2 and say Pantheon should be a lot like EQ2.
Fair.
There are similarities. There are features in EQ2 that I do like.
Nothing should be like EQ2.
That I think would make more sense or fit well into Pantheon. But I would never put that out there and think hey, that has to be in it.
Yep. All right, so last comments. We're gonna end it here. Anybody have any last things they want to throw out there before we wrap it up and I do a little closing?
I've got this itch, and Gold Bonds just isn't doing it anymore.
Are you saying Shaq lied? Are you saying that Shaq is a liar?
I'm saying Shaq's a piece of shit.
So I would take that as a no from Lex or Yarn. Anything else you wanted to throw in?
Nope.
All right. So first, before I close it off, I do want to thank both of you guys for coming on. It's been awesome to chat with you guys and have you as part of the show. And I do want to get a little mushy and say thank you for all the support you've given Pantheon Plus, because you guys were one of the originals to jump on right before we launched everything. So I do really appreciate all the support you guys have given.
I'm a lot like a really good sports bra. I support you, and I make you look good.
Sports bras don't make you look good. Maybe if you're a male.
Depends on what they're holding up.
So do honestly thank you guys for that, and thanks for coming on. You guys have also been awesome.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Yeah.
It feels good to be somewhere else.
I'm not in charge. I can run around. So the last piece of this for the audience that I'm going to say here is there's a lot more to talk on this topic. This doesn't necessarily solve it. I will tell you that I'm pretty surprised the majority of the community said they really do want Pantheon to be its own thing, and I actually feel really good about that. Even though my bar is higher, I am more comfortable saying, well, if we get Pantheon being its own game with very little influence, but it still feels old, like that style, and it's challenging and it's hard, and the things that we care about matter, I really truly believe from the bottom of my heart we'll all be very happy with the game, and I think that we will all be very excited and be playing it for multiple years, because I think at the end of the day we all just want to make sure this game comes out in 5 years after launch we're still talking about how awesome it is and meeting up and grouping and killing shit. So I think that's awesome.
Still having 5 years of an awesome game.
Yep.
No taking shortcuts or changing the mechanics to go mainstream and kind of break the game. Stick to it.
Yeah. No virtual reality add-on.
Hey, if you go by Brad's vision for 10 years, Pantheon, virtual reality, Minecraft.
No, thank you.
I think we all know, no offense to Brad, vision and doing are completely different things.
And
please God, no. Please God.
Apart from
he had a vision of coming on the VOT show. Look where that went.
He is coming soon.
Yeah. Apart from the virtual reality, I could, Brad, I support you. You complete me. Pantheon and Minecraft, but way more awesome. I'm game, buddy.
Yeah.
I'll support that.
And I think that's all we want. And I think that the thing is that there's never going to be a game that comes out that we're all pleased by. You're going to have to suck up what you don't like and have it overcome by the things that are done well. And if the game's done well, we'll be able to pass up something.
Nothing's going to be perfect. If you choose to focus on the negative, then you got no one to blame but yourself.
Hey, maybe we can do a discussion about that next time.
There you go.
Minus.
There you go.
You know,
These discussions make themselves. It's pretty easy.
There are things in Pantheon that I'm not 100% agreeing to.
Yeah.
Or I don't like. But does that make me go, oh, I'm not going to play this game anymore? No.
I will be open and honest that there is very little I dislike right now about the direction of Pantheon. Yeah. Very, very little. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up because we'll talk forever. This is the after show yarn discussion. Guys,
come join me in the green room.
Yeah, go join. Yeah. So after the show, we do always get together in the green room. Most of us tonight, I'm going to watch some football, but most of us do get together. So what's coming up next? We will do this every Thursday. We've finished up our Races of Terminus videos, so there's no more series of edited videos. You'll just see certain content coming out from us when it's important or we think there's something cool we want to talk about. Other than that, Pantheon PlusYou will be our main draw. I am going to side note that I'm really excited to blow shit up in Borderlands 3. There's a billion guns. I want to use every single one of them. So I will also be doing some side Pantheon patient Borderlands streaming. If anybody sees that, don't get scared. I'm not going anywhere. We're staying true to Pantheon. There is nothing that will take me off of Pantheon. I've openly said if Pantheon comes out and it's the worst game ever, I will still play it. So, Pantheon's first and foremost, but while we're being Pantheon patient, I'm going to be getting a lot of Borderlands 3 in, so you guys will see like late night streams, probably not advertised. If they ping you, but don't be annoyed. Yeah.
Smart to do that though, Minus,
I just want to have fun.
Be less distracted by the MMOs that have come and gone and still there, and be burnt out by the time Pantheon comes.
You got to have something. You got to have something in your arsenal. You have to be Pantheon patient. Find games to play. We are in an era that at any point you can log on to Steam or Epic Games and literally have hundreds of thousands of games to choose from. We are not in a shortage of games. Hey, it might only be 5, but there are games out there to play. Explore, go out, find stuff. Pantheon will still be here. Stick around, keep in touch, have fun chatting about it. But Pantheon Patient is huge. You need to find something to keep your patience there because none of us, I don't care what anybody says right now, nobody wants this game released unfinished. And how long that takes, we got to be patient. So thank you guys. We'll see you next Thursday. You will see some stuff out about next week's co-host and the topic at hand later next week or in the end of this week. Thank you guys for coming. It's been awesome. Once again, we had a full channel. The chat was awesome. I'm sorry I didn't get to everybody, but awesome time. And again, Lexer and Yarn, thank you so much. That's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys.
See you later.
Bye-bye.